If you're looking for some must-play indie games that may change your life and ones you need to look forward to, you've come to the right place. We cover this topic and much more on the Indie Friends Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Indie Friends Podcast. I am your host, your friend Jacob, and today I have some wonderful guests that I have been wanting to talk to for so long right now. So let me introduce my guest. Starting up is somebody who believed in the channel before I even did, someone who makes a ton of content, plays a ton of indie games on multiple channels, and is a little bit of a TikTok star, if you know what I mean. You might know him from the Mint City podcast, you might know him from TikTok, and you might know him from YouTube, but I know him as the mayor of mobile gaming. It's Mint City.
Thank you. Wow. Very humbling intro.
That's
right.
You
make me sound really cool.
Because you are cool. Exactly. And next up, we have one of the coziest YouTube channels out there. Okay, if you are not familiar with this channel, you are going to be by the end of this episode, and I guarantee you that you will subscribe. If you want to know more about the cozy games that you should look forward to and the backstories behind them, this is the channel to check out. It's Denise from SeeingStarsGaming.
Hello.
Thanks.
I feel like I should clap.
I want to like clap with everybody, but I was like,
thank you.
Kind of noisy.
Episode 1, we got to get the intros going off strong. So in this episode, we're going to talk all about indie games, which should be no surprise to anybody being called the Indie Friends Podcast. But I want to talk about the indie games that maybe have changed our lives, have impacted us the most, and why we talk about indie games. But first, we're dipping our toes in the water here. This is episode 1. I'm trying to, get a hang of being the host or whatever, getting a handle on it. And I thought the best way to do that was to just talk about what we've been playing. So in this segment, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. So I'm going to pass it off to my guests. They're going to tell me what indie games they've been playing, and they're going to give us a little elevator pitch of why you should play them too. You know what? Let's start with Denise. Denise, what have you been playing?
So I just been playing this game called Kraken Academy. I've been addicted to it. It's like a funny adventure game where you're the new kid at a school called Kraken Academy, and it's not an ordinary school. In fact, it's like really, really crazy with like ghosts in the art department, cultists in the playground, crocodiles everywhere, and it's just the school is a dump. But you have to save the school with like this magical kraken, and it's not a very difficult game, so I consider it pretty cozy, even though it probably doesn't fit into like the cozy gaming art style that you usually see with a lot of cozy games. But I enjoy it so much because it's very chill. It's really funny. All the characters are so like hilarious. They'll make you laugh. And one of my favorite activities in this game is that you can make a lot of money by defacing school property and like hitting a bunch of the trash cans. That is like my favorite part. So addicted to that. It is the best game ever.
Oh, amazing.
That sounds really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you can top that, Mint, but I want to know what you've been playing as well.
I can't top that. I'm more curious about that now. But I've been playing a game called Moonscars. I am a major sucker for pixel art. All of my followers know that. I mention it in like every video. And I really like dark fantasy, like with the books I read, as well as like movies, all kinds of media. And this is basically an amalgamation of the two. And so the best way I would describe it is if you're familiar with Foregone, it's like a 2D Metroidvania-ish kind of game with roguelike elements mixed in. And so this one is very similar gameplay-wise to that, except it has more of a focus on storytelling. It's very like artsy-fartsy in quotations with its story. So it's like very intriguing. You don't necessarily know the meaning of a lot of different metaphors and things, and you're wanting to know more, which I thought was really refreshing in like a roguelike Metroidvania game. And so I've just been really enjoying it. The storyline keeps me going. It is kind of difficult. It kind of reminds me a lot of Dark Souls in that way. It's a little bit more Dark Souls inspired than Foregone was. And so you got to be careful. Enemies can be really tough depending on the moon mechanic. That's what the whole game is kind of based around, is the moon. And once the moon turns blood red, the difficulty is cranked, but the rewards are cranked as well. So you can kind of like mix and match the difficulty level with what you like. So you can make the moon red, or you can make it just normal, if any of that makes sense. But I've been really enjoying it. It is on Games Pass. So if you already have Games Pass, you might as well try it out if any of that sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds great. Honestly, for anyone who's a Metroidvania fan, you should probably check it out. And, my audience was a little bummed that I didn't review that game. So, you know what? Consider that up there. Consider that the review of Moonscars.
Yeah.
Great game, as decided by Mint City. You don't need the reviews for me, everybody. I try. I do the best I can to review as many games as I can. But, that's why I have guests on here, so that I can, get even more reviews and opinions on games and stuff. So that's really good. And I think you were also mentioning that you were playing a certain very popular indie game that has now made its way to mobile. Is that correct?
Yes. So I knew I had to mention this on your podcast. It is Monster Train. Now, I know a lot of people think of Slay the Spire when they think of deck building games, but I think personally of Monster Train. I'm a huge fan of it. And it really does have a good, unique spin of giving it kind of like a tower defense feel in a way with the deck building game of Slay the Spire. And it's on mobile now. I just released a review of it like last week, and it is incredible on mobile. I have a tiny little iPhone SE 2022, and I was really worried that on a smaller screen, Monster Train would feel kind of convoluted and really hard to see certain things and read certain things. I can't believe it. They've completely ported it to mobile perfectly. And dare I say, this may be blasphemous, it is the way to play Monster Train on mobile. They have the DLC on there too. It's very cheap, cheaper than other platforms as far as I know. You have no reason not to go get that if you enjoy Monster Train in any way.
That sounds great. And I mean, Mint, I play a bunch of deck building games on mobile. I might call myself the number one slice and dice fan out there. Shout out for that being on Android. If you haven't played Slice and Dice, pick it up on itch.io because you also get the Android version with it. Amazing value. And for those that are familiar with Monster Train, the developers are working on a new game called Inkbound, which I'm really excited about. More of like a hex grid style strategy type game. It looks really, really cool. So hopefully we get some news on that soon, because from the footage I've seen, it looks really, really sweet. And now we're getting to the games that I have been playing, which is way too many to count right now. So I'll try and narrow it down as best I can. But I kind of leaked this a little bit on Twitter. So there's a couple games I have to talk about. One of which is the Entropy Center. Now, I've been hyping this game up for a while. I've featured it in like 3 videos at least at this point. It is a first-person puzzle game if you're not familiar with it. And I am right at the end, and I can easily say this is the closest to the feelings I've gotten playing Portal and Portal 2 of any game since those games. Like, this game is incredible. It does different things than the Portal games with the puzzle mechanics. So basically what you have to do in the Entropy Center is you have a chronology gun, essentially. That's name is Astra, who talks to you and is kind of witty and cute. It's all really well done. And so you have to think about the puzzles in reverse. So you'll be placing different cubes on switches, using cubes to bounce, all these different kinds of mechanics. And you'll have to go and say, like, okay, I need this cube to be right at the end, and then kind of like walk your steps back. Then do it in the correct way, so then you can reverse it, so then you can make it through like doors and activate switches at the right times and stuff. All of that probably sounds ridiculous, but in practice, it works really, really well. I thought the writing was great. I've played so many of the puzzle rooms, and there was only one that I didn't like. There was one that I actually kind of hated, I'll be honest with you. But to say that there was only one room out of the several dozen puzzles that are available in this game is super high praise. And it's definitely crawling up my Games of the Year list right now, which I am dreading trying to come up with that list because I've played way too many games, and it's just, there's going to be so many good games that don't make it. But the Entropy Center, I think if you're a fan of puzzle games, sci-fi, and first-person games in particular, especially if first-person games don't give you a headache, like, this is a must play in my opinion. Other games have come in between Portal 2 and the Entropy Center that have done really great jobs. Like the Cube series is great, Superliminal is really good, but in my opinion, the Entropy Center is the best out of all of them. And if you love the Portal series, you should check it out. So there's my glowing review of the Entropy Center.
You sold Denise for sure. I saw her reaction.
Yeah, I
I
saw your face light up during that.
I'm like, oh, that sounds so good because I love Portal, so I'm just like, ooh, I really want to play it now.
Yeah. The only thing that I wish that the Entropy Center had, and this is like a complaint that does not matter at all, is something I love so much about Valve games in particular is how much you can interact with. Like you can just pick up anything and kind of do whatever. There's a little bit of that in the Entropy Center, but not as much. And maybe I haven't activated this achievement or don't know if this achievement even exists. But the way I am in games like this is I want to like press every button and interact with everything I possibly can. So there's vending machines. And I've just been smashing every button of every vending machine in every single room, no matter what I'm doing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the game at all. And I can't help it. I'm like the kid in the elevator that has to push every button. That's how I am in the Entropy Center. And my last point that I forgot is for anyone who's concerned about the puzzles being too hard, two things. One, I don't think this game is that difficult once you get a hang of like the way you're supposed to think. You kind of have to like retrain your brain a little bit to be like, I need to solve these in reverse order. Once you get that, like a lot of the puzzles seem very, very intuitive. And number two, the cheese factor is definitely there. There have been a couple of puzzles where I'm like, if I just scoot on this ledge a little bit and jump this particular way, I might be able to skip this entire section. And it's not with every single room, but a couple of rooms I have tried some strats to get ahead of it, and it totally works. So if you're concerned at all by the difficulty, I don't think you should be. And I don't want to give too much away from the story, but I really enjoyed the way they did it. It wasn't overdone, and it was really cool the way that they sort of integrated that into the game as the game progressed. So those are my thoughts on the Entropy Center. Now, I have a cozy game YouTuber on here, so like I can't not mention a cozy game, right? Like there's no way I can't do that. So I finished yesterday a little game called The Spirit and the Mouse. And Denise, I know you have talked about this game before. I don't know if you've played the full game yet, but let me tell you, if you have enjoyed the demo of this game, you are going to enjoy the full experience. It was everything I expected in the best possible way. For those that don't know, The Spirit and the Mouse, you are a mouse who, by a certain event that I'm not going to give away, turn into a very special mouse who their job is to basically assist a sort of benevolent lightning guy whose job is to help people. But he's stuck in this sort of French village type vibe situation going on, and you need to help them. Thankfully, you are a very helpful mouse, and you want to help humans just as much as these lightning guys do. And by doing that, you're sort of interacting with different humans sort of as basically a fly on the wall. They don't know that you're paying attention to them at all. And you're sort of listening to their problems, and you're trying to help them. As you help them, you gain happiness, which you then pass on to the lightning person that you're helping. I'm trying to be very vague here to not give like too much away so that people play it. But it was just so adorable, and the gameplay backs it up. Like the gameplay was not boring at all. Like I really, really enjoyed it. This is not like a 3D platformer, but I think 3D platformer fans would enjoy it. And I'm a huge 3D platformer fan, and there's a lot of collectibles. So if you're a collectathon fan, I think you're going to enjoy this as well. Like half the time I would just get distracted and try to collect all of the light bulbs, and things like that. The stuff that I didn't really need to collect everything, but I was like, I am going to collect all of these. And
that's me. That's me.
So this game is perfect for that. Again, without giving away anything, I thought the ending was great. I really like how everything sort of culminated to the end. And for someone who wants something that's maybe a little bit more bite-sized or finds themselves not able to kind of finish games because games are getting larger and larger, and I'm sure we'll circle back around to that in one of our later questions. It took me like 4 hours to complete, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. I thought the camera was good. 1 point for anybody who's playing the game, if they feel like, I play this on controller, if you feel like the camera moves a little bit too quickly, there is a right stick sensitivity setting, and it's at default 40. I moved it down to 30, and it was perfect. So for anyone who has any concerns with the camera being a little wonky, I never really had any issues, except I went under a pallet that I don't think I was supposed to go under, and my camera definitely freaked out hard. But once it set itself back, it was great. The music is incredible. Like it ebbs and flows between like, full orchestra and then kind of like more sort of solo piano pieces, and I really like how that kind of goes back and forth there. And visually, I mean, it's just so good. And it's actually, it's something that if you're worried about maybe it being too large of a game in terms of space, it was like less than a gig, which I'm sure we're going to talk about this later too. Like space is a commodity now that, we cannot take for granted. So I was really happy to see that it scales well. I don't know how the Switch version is, but I haven't seen anyone complain about it. So I think you're good to go on PC or Switch. Definitely pick this up. Denise, I see that you've lit up again when me bringing up a game. Do you have any thoughts on The Spirit and the Mouse?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, on Twitter, the game developer actually mentioned that they were surprised because somebody, I think, commented that they were surprised by how small the game is. Like, it's like a gigabyte. I'm like, The game is beautiful. It's so gorgeous. It's like so detailed, and I'm just floored by how small it is. It was so good.
Yep.
The ending is one of the most wholesome things that you'll ever see. I'm not going to talk about it because you got to experience it yourself. But all the characters are really, really cute, and those like little light beings that are trying to help others, they're called Kiblins. They're not the smartest, but they are so like cute and charming, and they have their own special like personality that really makes your heart like warm inside. Like, oh, yeah, so cute. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. But it's one of my favorite games of this year because it's just so wholesome.
Me too. Yeah. Like in terms of cozy games this year, The Spirit and the Mouse, I don't know if it's going to be beat. I also really, really liked Lumbearjack. I don't know if you've checked that out, but Lumbearjack's really, really good. It's an adorable bear that is basically trying to help combat sort of corporate destruction of land, and you do it by also destroying corporate buildings and stuff, and it's incredibly wholesome
with a vengeance.
It basically
is what I'm hearing.
But as you sort of complete these levels, you get these like really cool cutscenes with like adorable woodland creatures that are like, so happy that you're helping them, and it's an incredible game. And one of those games that kind of snuck up on us. Like, I've been looking forward to it for a while, and then it just kind of released, and I was really surprised on that. But I believe that both Lumbearjack and The Spirit and the Mouse have the same publisher, which is Armor Game Studios, which they keep publishing some incredibly cozy and wholesome games. Like Snacko is going to be coming out probably next year. Really looking forward to that. And Islets is in competition for my game of the year. So shout out to Armor Game Studios. They're doing a really great job publishing some cozy games that I really, really like. So those are the two main ones. On top of that, I have to mention what I'm playing on Steam Deck, which is OlliOlli World. I really, really like it. I'll try to keep it brief. If you think that OlliOlli 1 or 2 is too hard, play OlliOlli World, because they've made some changes to the way that it functions. You don't just bail every time you don't land perfectly, which is really nice. And I know that there was some pushback of like, Well, I think that they're making it a little too easy. Trust me, they add a number of mechanics as the game goes on to kind of like level that out. And I think they've made some really good design choices. It's more approachable. The art style is great. The music is great. It has a really robust character customization suite, which I didn't really mess with too much because like you're going so fast, I'm not even paying attention to what my character looks like, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's there, and you can dress up in like all these different costumes and stuff and look really cool. So I really enjoy it, and it plays perfectly on Steam Deck. So if you're looking for something to play on there, play that. And then also I'm playing a bunch of roguelikes, which we don't have to get into because this will go on forever if I talk about all of those. So
I'm really glad you mentioned the new OlliOlli game, because I actually bought that on a whim on my wife's Switch. And we ended up playing that for like 3 or 4 hours straight the first playthrough. We loved OlliOlli. It's really good. And when I saw how different this newest installment looked, I was like, I don't know if I'll still enjoy it. But if it's got the Jacob's seal of approval,
it does.
That's basically an insta-buy now. So that was very useful for me.
There's mechanics that once you experience in that game, you'll wish that they existed in the first two. And so... I think that they've done a really great job in striking the balance between we can make it a little bit more approachable, but still have challenge there. And a lot of that challenge is optional, which I really, really enjoy. So like you don't have to 100% all of the challenges and stuff. They're there if you want them to be, right? So sometimes I'll play a level and I'm like, I'm good. I completed the level. I'm moving on. And then other ones I'm like, I want that cool shirt, even though I'm probably not even going to put it on my character. I just want it. So I'll do all the challenges. So it has a nice level of flexibility there. So that is what we've been playing. And I think now we should get into the main topic, which is why indie games. But before that, I'm going to have to do the YouTubery thing because this is episode 1 of this podcast. And so if you are a true friend or a new friend, I'm going to need you to hit that like button down there because I need you to help me let YouTube know to kind of share this to other people. And I also want you to comment, what is your favorite indie game of all time? I'm going to be reading all of the comments, and I will not judge any of your opinions. I will thumbs up every single one, because whatever your favorite indie game is good with me. So let me know what your favorite indie game is, and hit the thumbs up button, please and thank you. And now, for every episode of this podcast, I want it to be around a question or a topic, rather than news, because I just want to be able to kind of like have a deeper dive and a deeper discussion into kind of how we feel about an overarching topic. So this overarching topic is why indie. Now, the main question from there that we're going to go, we have to take a step back. We're all indie game content creators on this podcast right now. Of all the games that we could be covering AAA games, we could be covering games as a service, we could be covering a lot of games that sometimes yield a lot of views and a lot of attention, and a lot of eyes. But we don't do that often. We talk about the solo devs, the tiny teams, the weird, the obscure, the just completely bonkers games that don't get enough attention. And they're the games that we love. We're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts because we just love indie games so much. And so my question to both of you is, out of all those games, you cover indie games. What has drawn you so much to indie games? And what has kind of led you to being like, hey, these are the games I want to cover and these are the games I want to play and talk about? We're going to start with Mint this time.
I think just as humans, one of the biggest things as you get into adulthood, especially, just the older you get, I feel like we are naturally drawn to things that give us nostalgia. Like nostalgia is one of the best dopamine releases we can find. And I feel like the only times that in recent memory since I've gotten older, that I have felt that feeling of nostalgia of experiencing something new in a video game that I haven't seen before, or that never even crossed my mind as possible, or the creativity of the dev making this and having this experience, is with indie games. Because indie games, I feel like they know what they want to be, and in a majority of them, the dev already has a vision for it. They already have a goal with it, and it's way more concentrated. There's not as much fluff. And so you just get to experience exactly what the dev wants you to experience. And every indie game is so different. And so that's what I really appreciate about indie games in general, and why I'm so naturally drawn to them, is that every experience feels different. I feel like a little kid again. It's that nostalgia. And I don't experience that as much. It's possible to experience it outside of indie gaming. But I feel like a majority of the time it's with indie games, and that's naturally why.
Definitely can echo those sentiments. Denise, why do you talk about indie games so much?
I kind of feel like the same way. Mm-hmm. I really connect with like the PS2 era games because I find like they're like the crazier, more creative games. Mm-hmm. And nowadays I feel like AAA games, they're not as creative. They're kind of more formulaic. They're a little bit, they want to make money and they have this formula mm-hmm. that works for them. So they don't really go beyond that. But I find that indie developers have a lot of like unique experiences that they kind of put into their games, and they're more explorative with what they make. And so that comes out in like very unique experiences with their games. And I absolutely love it in terms of like humor, in terms of like character art, or just art in general, or the story is just so much fun to like try new experiences and kind of like learn about the developer through those games sometimes. And that's what I really love about indie games and why I cover indie games. Yeah.
Wow, both of those were incredible answers. I'm really glad I had both of you on. I really can't top any of that, but I will say, like, for me, the reason that I cover indie games is incredibly similar, but it comes down to innovation, it comes down to taking risks, and it comes down to doing a lot with a little. And I'm just so drawn to that. For me, indie games, just like you said, Denise, explore territories that AAAs wouldn't even consider. And I think that that's just so amazing to see within indie games. So like, for example, you know, one of my potential game of the years is Sephony. And this is like the perfect example of an indie game for me, because the developers essentially were like, here are the conventions of a 3D platformer. We're going to flip all of that on its head. And here's how we're going to do it. First off, we're going to make it look like it probably released on the N64 because we can. And number two, what if the bosses were the chill part? What if the bosses were the part where you relax and take a breath, and then it's like a Tetris-style puzzle game for some reason? And then you also catalog the creatures once you've defeated them, quote unquote, in battle, which really defeating them is actually just linking with them. So it's not even really like an attack thing going on. And just like, and then we're also going to have this, you know, super amazing sort of sci-fi kind of take on different people with different identities, different struggles. And we're really going to expand on them both during gameplay and through these like really well done vignettes. And to me, like, that's indie games. Indie games cover so many different subjects that you just don't see in AAA gaming. Now, AAAs are starting to kind of like do that a little bit, right? Like, but it's often the indie games that are so ahead on things like story, on accessibility, on gameplay. They're just so far ahead. And then AAAs just kind of tiptoe along. Maybe they'll kind of do this. And I think a good example of this is a game that Mint City is obsessed with, and that I used to be obsessed with, and that I think Mint City is trying to get me to be obsessed with again, which is Apex Legends, right? So,
yeah,
you know, I don't want this to be bashing AAAs entirely. So I am going to give flowers to a AAA game that I think has done some things right, which is Apex Legends. So Apex Legends just recently had or added a trans character, which is really, really cool, and unapologetically trans, which is awesome, right? They've had a non-binary character for a long time, and they have
since day one.
Exactly. Yeah. My favorite character. And multiple characters who are LGBTQ, which is really, really great. And representation is like amazing. However, representation is step one. That's step one. When you then go beyond that and have that be like the basis of your game, the exploratory basis of your game, that is something that is like so amazing, because like I want to experience stories from people who have different lived experiences than I do, right? That is something that I can connect with. That is something that I can learn from. And it's something I want to see within all forms of art, whether that's listening to an album or playing a game. Like, I want to see those areas explored. And indie games have been doing that for a long time. I mean, you can go years in the past and find visual novels on itch.io with titles that are basically as long as an early 2000s emo album that so gracefully
poetic
talks about and explains and explores these subject matters in a way that AAAs could never even dream of. And so that's something that I really appreciate about indie games. I also love, Mint, that you mentioned the nostalgia factor. It's like, I feel like oftentimes indie games will take some of the formula of retro games and expand on them with the added technology that we have. I mean, we see something like Shovel Knight, right? Where Shovel Knight was heavily inspired by DuckTales and Mega Man. Doesn't really play that similarly to either one of them. And it's also 2D, but it's actually not. Like, those are things that are really, really cool to see from indie games. And also, I mean, every time I'm doom scrolling social media, the only thing that makes me happy now is seeing some solo dev figure out an issue and show you progress of their game. I'm like, this is why I'm online. Right?
Exactly.
Like, this is the thing that I'm like so obsessed with, is seeing someone take zero budget and potentially not even much experience and create something that is like super fun and connects with people. It's something that I could never even imagine myself doing. I have a hard enough time making a YouTube video. Like, could you imagine making a game? That sounds just so like a Herculean task for me to do. And it's something that I will always connect with indie gaming. And plus, as we'll talk about in the next question, that indie games have connected with me in a way that's just deeper than the game itself. And, it's just, that's why I talk about it. It's why I started the channel. It was interesting. I told Mint this, I was never planning on starting this channel until this year, but I started it last year. And the reason I started it was because of the itch.io bundle for Palestinian aid. I saw that aid. I saw nobody talking about this on YouTube. And I was like, why is nobody talking about this on YouTube? And then I was like, well, maybe I should talk about this on YouTube. And then I talked about it on YouTube, and that was what started it. So, and I guess that also brings me to my last point is, we see these games that are $60, $70. Denise, you mentioned some of the formulaic aspects of AAA games. And I'll maybe take it a step further and go, I don't need to see any more Ubisoft towers ever in my life again. I don't need to see it. There's too many towers. There's too many sort of the same kind of open world feeling of games and stuff that seem cool at the start and then feel incredibly empty the more that you play. And, it just, to me, I'd much rather play, and maybe this is just me being an old man, I'd rather play a game that I'm done with in 4 hours and I feel really great about, like The Spirit and the Mouse, than something that's hundreds of hours and I feel like I'll never complete. And it also feels like a job, because we also have to mention monetization structures of indie games. And Mint, you're very familiar with this on the mobile side. The mobile side has been the beta test for a lot of these monetization structures that keep creeping into our games, and it just feels like a job. Why don't you kind of talk about some of your monetization experiences real quick?
So I used to be a writer for Touch Arcade, which is a website that exclusively covers mobile gaming as well as the Switch. So I wrote for them for a year, and I got to work exclusively with developers behind the scenes, learn about their games, the monetization structures even, and obviously some of those are under NDA to this day.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that mobile gaming really does have a very bad rap for a good reason. I agree with people that a majority of what you see on the App Store is really bad. And it really kind of covers all of the good stuff, like the indie games that we've been talking about. It has improved over time, but I've seen monetization, the normal in-app purchases with the little packs of currency. You've seen that. Obviously, I kind of run away when I see that. I kind of write the game off. Maybe I'll enjoy it, but there's no way I'm going to support it with more of my time and money. But the monetization structure for indie games specifically that I have appreciated in the past and that are successful for developers that I have personally interacted with are the demo strategy. So it's free to download, and they have like a time gated portion of the game that you can try out and enjoy, or it's up to a specific point in the game. And then they'll say to unlock the rest of the version, it's a one-time in-app purchase. And I think this is the safest bet because personally, I'm very tapped in with TikTok, and that's a younger platform. Like I'm 28. I'm kind of an old geezer at this point. And I realize that people don't, especially on mobile, hate paying for games. If it's not free, they write it off. And so I think that's the perfect in between where they at least get a taste of the game. And I feel like developers, they know when they have something good and they want people to experience it. So putting it in the player's hands to get hooked and want to purchase it, even if that may be against their preferences, that's personally my favorite monetization strategy for indie games, at least on mobile. And that's the safest way to do it. But obviously, all of us, we don't mind having a price tag on our games. Like me personally, I would just want a premium game, toss it up like any other platform. I'll buy it right up front. But I think the safest strategy, at least for now, until mobile gaming continues to improve, that is the monetization strategy I would go with.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned some of the better monetization strategies because it feels like a lot of the AAA games are ignoring those, and instead they're adopting monetization structures more of the past. So like I mentioned before, sometimes like it feels like playing those games are a job. Like they're fighting for your attention, they're fighting for your time, and it's like I'd rather have a meal that consists of a bunch of different dishes than just one giant heap of the same food over and over again. And like you don't really get those opportunities as much in the AAA space because they want you to log in every day and play every day and hopefully spend money every day. And they want you to kind of get tapped in with the gambling. And I mean, don't get me started on battle passes on paid games. Paid games, battle passes, that's a thing. And I'm a former sports games fan. I used to love playing sports games, and they're like ruined for me because of the way that they're just so predatory with their monetization. I'm glad that indies are picking up because I'd much rather play something like Retro Bowl or Legend Bowl than like Madden. I'd much rather play basketball classics than NBA 2K, like because I just want to play the game. I don't care necessarily how my character looks to other people online. I don't care about any of that stuff. Is the game fun? Number one. And then number two, like, will you just let me play it? Like, and these games are also like throwing more ads and stuff. And it comes down to, again, like Denise said, they're out there for profit. They don't necessarily care about the player. They care about the shareholders. That's the main concern for AAA studios. And there's much less of that in the indie space. There is some of that, but there's much less of it. And then to kind of wrap that point up, it feels a lot more just good to me playing some of these indie games because as they have sort of advanced in storytelling and monetization and things like that, they're also ahead of the curve of how they treat their people. So we've seen studios move down to 4-day work weeks. We've seen studios have increase of wages across the board. We've seen some studios have rev share. We've seen with Dead Cells, they have a sort of hybrid model where one side of it is more of a sort of worker co-op structure. And then we also have indie studios that are actual co-op structures like Co-op, which is a co-op. And it's great. And they make wonderful games like Nog, which everyone should play. That game is incredible. and Goodbye Volcano High, which is coming out soon. Definitely check that one out. So by seeing how they're advancing in some of those aspects, and even the publishers like Chucklefish went down to 4-day work week, and they definitely had some issues early on in their history, but they've sort of rectified that and are being very pro worker in a way that these like union busting, abusive AAA studios, they're not doing that. And so it's feels better to play those games. And also from a value standpoint, I just had a video that was about roguelikes under $5. And I cover 12 games. And if you bought all 12, that costs less than a AAA game. Like, that's incredible. It's incredible to be able to just like buy a bunch of games that you can actually like afford. And I know some people are in better financial situations that can afford $60, $70 games, but I certainly am not in that position. So being able to kind of get more variety is great. And I hope it continues. Now, switching gears a little bit to get a little bit more, hopefully, upbeat and not in the doom and gloom of the state of AAA, we've talked about sort of why we do what we do, why we talk about indie games, why we play them. Has there been an indie game that has had the most profound impact on you? A game that maybe it changed your life, maybe it's just lingering in your head and you can't get it out of your head, or just had an emotional response from you? So that's something that I want to know from y'all. And I will start with Denise. What indie game has had the most sort of profound impact on you?
I played this game like years ago, but it's called Undertale. And I actually didn't finish the game, but I like watched a Let's Play and fully watched through it. And it's just like one of my favorite games. It was like one of the first couple of games that I considered was kind of like cozy before I even knew what cozy was.
Right.
It's a game where you play as like a kid that falls underground into like a world of monsters, and you have to find a way out to get out before you're trapped there forever. And it's just like a really heartwarming and also kind of like different story from what I used to play when I was younger. Because at that time there weren't very many like cozy games, and there weren't any games that were like focused more on connections with other characters. And I found that a lot of the characters within that game had like very funny and interesting characters, but they also made me feel really strongly connected with them. Like I was like, oh, I love you. Like, oh my God, I love you oh so much. Like, I was like huge fans of them after like I finished the game. I was like crying. I was like, I'm so sad that it's done. But that was one of the games that kind of started me on trying to find more games like Undertale. And then after I found like Undertale, like I started playing a couple more games, but nothing quite like Undertale. I know there's another game called like One Shot. That one's also really, really good. Oh, so good. Yep. So wonderful. It has a lot of like similar vibes as Undertale, and it's a little bit, it's dark, but it's not scary. It's just like very cute, but also the story and the world is just amazing. So also check that out. And then after that, like a couple years ago, when I actually got into the cozy game scene, I tried out a game called A Short Hike, which is...
Oh, I love that game.
Yeah, it's the epitome of cozy games. So that's how I really, really got into cozy games, was that game. And that spiraled me into like cozy games, and I just started getting into it so much. Because before I loved like RPGs and stuff, but I didn't really know what like cozy games was. I was just like, I like cozy games. I mean, I like just chill games, like with lots of story, good lore. That was my thing. But A Short Hike definitely changed things up, where you can like make new friends, explore the world, and it's like a beautiful world. And it's not about like the end goal. It's more about the journey while you're on the hike and getting to meet everybody. And it's just so wholesome. I love it.
Amazing picks. I love Undertale as well. And I love how the game reacts to the way you play. I love the fourth wall breaking nature of games like that, and One Shot as well. I mean, incredible choices, honestly. Mint, what indie game has had the most profound impact on you?
I think I'll kind of do two. It all started, like, again, I'm dating myself a bit, but I I grew up like in middle school and high school in the thick of Flash games. And Flash games are like the first indie games, in my opinion. I consider them to be indie games because that's when devs weren't even expecting money. They were just making games to make games because they had an idea. And I remember two that really stuck out to me. And the first one was Brink of Alienation. And so this guy is an artist, and obviously it's a little bit like rough around the edges, but he drew the entire game. And it was a simple premise where you're just defending humanity against aliens, kind of in a Halo kind of setting. But I just remember being like in middle school, and it hit me. I was like, one guy made this entire game that I'm currently playing in a browser, because I grew up without my own gaming console until I was a lot older. And so Flash games were all I had. And so I grew up playing indie games, and that was the only taste of gaming I really had. So I thought of that one, and I thought of The Last Stand as well, which is like a zombie defense game where you try to survive as many days as possible. And it's really simple. You're just shooting at zombies. And then in between the days of survival, you're finding new survivors and hiring them on and helping you. But it was just all these like little details, like if your barricades get destroyed all the way, your survivors that you like have grown attached to, they run and you like die alone. And it's just like these little details that I was just like, how did one guy or like a small team of people, like 2 or 3 people, come up with all these small little details and making a game that I felt stood up to like the games that I've seen on consoles. And so the Flash games, and then obviously another one, Super Meat Boy. I didn't even know that that was technically an indie game or made by 2 dudes until the indie game documentary. I'm a documentary junkie. I watch everything, documentaries. And I love my platformers. You already know this about me, Jacob. I'm a platformer junkie, and I've always been since I was a kid. And I downloaded that game and played the crap out of it, Super Meat Boy. And then I found out there's a documentary about it, and it just really impacted me. So I'm like you guys. I really like knowing the behind the scenes and how things are made. I'm always questioning like everything behind. I want to know these little details that are making what I'm seeing and playing. So that's definitely the things that have impacted me the most: Flash games and Super Meat Boy.
Wow, those choices are so good. And before I get to mine, I just want to ask you, Mint, like, what was your poison as far as Flash games? Were you a Newgrounds guy? Were you?
It was basically anything that wasn't blocked on the school computers.
Yeah, 100%.
But
100%.
But to a degrrie, yeah, definitely that. But at home, I feel like Armor Games really hosted a lot of those big name indie game feel Flash games. Like that's where I found Brink of Alienation. And I think The Last Stand was also on Armor Games and stuff. So,
and look at them now publishing my favorite stuff.
I know. Crazy.
So good.
Yeah.
So for me, like, Mint kind of knows this story already, because I talked with him on his podcast. Shout out, subscribe to his channel. And
oh my goodness.
For me, like, my story is a weird one in terms of getting into indie games. So if you're not familiar, and not that many people are because I haven't talked about it a lot, I am both chronically ill and disabled. And basically what happened, without getting too far into every health issue I have, because we'll go on forever, in 2016, I was in the healthiest state of my life. I had multiple jobs. I was going to grad school, had my own house. Everything was going great. No issues whatsoever. Really enjoyed life, was living in another part of the state. Everything was really, really, really great. And within about a month, I went from being in the best shape of my life to not being able to walk, not being able to speak, not being able to get out of bed, make it to the bathroom, nothing. And I had no idea what was going on. It was like in the blink of an eye, I went from super healthy to super not. And in it, I ended up losing my jobs. I had to leave grad school. I lost my house, which was a big legal nightmare for a while there. My whole life as I knew it, gone. And I told Mint this as well. For quite some time, I was too sick to play video games at all, to look at a screen, and I didn't talk. I did not speak for well over a year because I couldn't say anything. And basically a lot of what happened is I had a lot of untreated infections that made its way throughout my body and brain and wreaked havoc, which it was a really, really difficult time. And I'm still dealing with the after effects now as my eye twitches during this podcast. That's great timing. But that was not planned. But so when I started to get some of my strength back and health back, and I was doing physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, you name it, I needed to start out smaller. Like I needed to try to play things that weren't going to be too difficult and weren't going to be too like overly stimulating, because I had to play in short chunks and I couldn't look at the screen for very long still, because I get migraines all the time. Part of why this room is so dark. But the game that kind of broke through for me was Stardew Valley. Like, so that's the game that's had the biggest impact. I mean, it's great that we have Denise here because Cozy Games, all full circle. Playing Stardew changed my life. And I don't mean that like as a hyperbolic statement, but let me try to explain why it did that. So in the position that I was in, I was wheelchair bound and I was being kind of pushed around everywhere. And, this was something that I knew happened, but it's not until you experience it that you really, really understand how bad it is. I was treated as less than a human being. When people would look at me, they wouldn't speak to me. They wouldn't look me in the eye. They would only address the person who was assisting me. And basically it came to the point where I fell out of touch with pretty much everybody I knew, and I just didn't feel like I was a human being. I felt terrible. Depression was a big issue and things like that. And with Stardew, I could just live out a what if scenario, which is kind of what everyone does in Stardew, but it's so great for that. I could live out a life where people weren't judging me for the way that I was or the way that I looked. I could make decisions. I had independence. I had freedom. And it was everything that I needed, because it also gave me a sense of community. These characters weren't real. This town isn't real, but it was real to me because I needed people in my life, right? I needed people to kind of talk to and check in with. And I didn't have that because there was no circle. There was no people to turn to or anything like that. So then I just became obsessed with it. I was like, this is the escapism. And that's the other thing about video games and indie games for me that I love so much, is the sense of escapism, the sense of living out another life, or kind of taking yourself away from your problems or the struggles of everyday life, right? Because, life is pretty topsy-turvy right now, and everything kind of feels like a hellscape. So having a sense of escapism, something to go to, is just so important for anyone, whether that is books, music, games, anything. And Stardew opened my eyes to playing more indie games, because really the only indie game that I really played prior to that was Super Meat Boy on Xbox Live, which was great, but I didn't really like it. It didn't kind of divert me into playing other stuff, because I was just like, yeah, this game's awesome. Now I'm going to play more Halo, right? So it wasn't until Stardew where I was like, yo, these are the games I want to play. Like, I don't even care about anything else gaming-wise going on. And from there, playing games like Celeste, after a while, getting more strength in playing Celeste. Because I told Mint, it was interesting. So the dexterity of my left hand was like really compromised for a long time. And so the way that I started playing games again was with a mouse on my right hand and I know you may remember the PS Move controller, the sort of weird looking wand.
The bubble wand.
Yeah. It was kind of kind of a Wiimote, and I'm not really sure what they were going with design wise, but anyway, there was a nunchuck attachment that people have completely forgotten about. You can get that working on PC. So I used the sort of PS Move nunchuck in one hand and a mouse in the other and rebinded everything to work for me. And then the longer I did more physical therapy and stuff, now, other than a little bit of reaction time issues, like I'm mostly there thanks to accessibility settings and dimming screens and things like that. Shout out to Hidden Folks, by the way, who added a filter, because for a while I could not play the game because it was like searing my eyes. And so I love indie games kind of having those settings and stuff. So, but yeah, that Stardew Valley completely changed the way I looked at video games, the way I looked at the medium in and of itself, the way I looked at escapism, and just it gave me the community that I didn't have for the longest time, which thankfully now that I'm talking about indie games, I have a community of both actual people and NPCs. So, full circle there with Stardew. I don't really have a whole lot of other ones with a super profound impact other than games that have an emotional response. Rhyme. I'll just say that. Rhyme. Play Rhyme and play it to the end. And that game is a try not to cry challenge impossible. So I will just leave it at that. And then games like Journey and Abzu. Oh, unbelievable. Like, those games are stuck in my head. Firewatch is stuck in my head.
Firewatch is so good.
So good.
I love Firewatch.
I am enraged right now because of Camposanto getting absorbed by Valve. Now, I'm glad that they got to work on Half-Life Alyx. They're doing a lot of really good stuff there. But In the Valley of Gods looked so good.
It really did.
It looks incredible. I want it. Please release it. Even if it's not done, put out like a little demo and be like, this is how far we got. Just for like preservation standpoint. It's like PT
for
the
culture.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want to play that game so bad. I love that studio. I'm glad they're working on Half-Life stuff. Half-Life 3, maybe? We'll see. Valve is allergic to the number 3, but it might be ending.
First ever.
Yeah, it would be nice if Valve acknowledged the... I think they'll acknowledge the Steam Deck 3 before they'll acknowledge Half-Life 3. Like, I think that's where we're going at this point with how well that's done. But yeah, like, those are... Undertale, what an incredible answer, Denise, because like that game had a profound impact on me as well. Like, playing through the two different, like, or multiple different rather, methods of play, and like you mentioned, those characters are so memorable to the point where, I mean, the Sans reveal during Smash, like, that blew my mind. I was like, yeah, the game's super popular, but like, all right, now granted it's like a costume or whatever, but like, that's still so huge because like we don't have that many indie representation in Smash, and seeing that and seeing everyone's like sort of elation for that reveal is just so incredible. And I haven't even touched Deltarune yet. I'm actually just waiting for it to be like kind of done. Like, I know that it's out there, that, multiple chapters are out there, and I'm just waiting. I'm just going to wait for it to be done because I want to experience it all in like one go.
Oh, me too. Actually, I haven't tried Deltarune either because it's just like it's kind of like I feel like Undertale and Deltarune feel like really emotional. You have to be like in the right mindset to like kind of get into it. But it's very beautiful. Yeah. It's so great. And shout out to Fred Wood, who's working on that, who has made one of my favorite platformers of all time, Love 3, play it. That individual is a genius. And now they're working on Deltarune, which is really, really sweet. I also like how sort of intertwined all of these indie devs are. Like, it just seems like sort of like an extended family of sorts. And I just love seeing like, oh, I'm working on this person's game, or oh, I did UI on this game. And it's like, it seems like a natural thing to do, but it's not something that I would have thought of. And seeing it happen all the time just like warms my heart to see all of these devs just like helping each other, which is just, it's what you want to see.
It's a very supportive environment in comparison to anything outside of the indie gaming space. Like everything feels like a competition, or people are ripping each other's ideas off and stuff like that. But like, I am just blown away. 99% of the developers I have interacted with are just truly good people. And maybe I've just lucked out, but I am just very impressed with, like you said, that it's just a network. It's a tight knit community, despite how big indie gaming is now. Like, let's not fool ourselves. Like, indie gaming is bigger than it's ever been. Yeah. But the supportiveness is still there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to shout out my friend Jennifer. She created a game called Love Ghostie, and it's a very cute dating sim kind of game. And she's also very nice. I just want to shout her out because she's a developer. It was really cool.
See, I love
What's the name of that game again, by the way?
Love Ghostie.
Love Ghostie.
You're a ghost and you're shipping all the other characters living in the building. So you're a ghost kind of haunting that building, but you want to ship everybody together.
That's super clever, actually.
Follow them on Twitter too. Really good stuff there.
Yeah, they're so cute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, look at us now. We're shouting out indie devs. Like, this is why we do what we do. Like, we know the people behind the games we love, and that's the connection that I am all about. And I mean, I could just go on and on about all the indie devs that are just doing incredible work. But let's shift gears a little bit to kind of wrap things up here. We often talk about the games that we love, that we're playing, and everything like that. But if you're familiar with my channel at all, you're familiar with the sort of endless hype cycle that I like to sort of foster here, which we're always looking ahead. We're always looking forward to the games that are coming out. So the next question is, what indie game or games are you most looking forward to? And we will start with Denise. What are you looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to Witchbrook. So it's by Chucklefish, so kind of on that same line of games. So Witchbrook, I feel like it's very similar and maybe inspired by Stardew Valley, maybe the older Harvest Moon series, where it's like a social RPG, where you're a witch. So not like Stardew Valley where you're just a farmer. No. You are a witch, and you go to this college called Witchbrook. And it's a coming of age adventure where you learn about your powers, make friends, find love, and then help others around town. And it feels like you can, because a lot of witch games nowadays are more linear and story. There's a story that you have to follow. That's very like point 1, point 2, point 3. But I feel like in Witchbrook, it seems like it's more like you kind of guide what you want to do within the game, kind of like how in Stardew Valley, you can kind of do what you want to do. And if you want to find romance, you can do that. If you don't want to find romance, that's okay too. Or you want to mine, or you want to focus on just like farming, or just do everything. There's a lot of exploration and creativity that can happen, I feel like, in Witchbrook. And even after you graduate, you can still live that postgraduate life as a witch, which is really fun, and help the others around the little town that you're in.
The art style on that is so good.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yep. I love when games have that new game plus kind of thing. After you finish the game, there's still stuff to do. You don't have to like close the book on it. Like, you can still kind of exist in that world. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, I love that. I agree.
Awesome. All right, Mint, what are you looking forward to?
So I'm a huge fan. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Meteorfall series. So Meteorfall is a deck builder with really unique mechanics. And he's made 2 games, Meteorfall Journey, and then it's followed by Meteorfall From Its Tail. And each one is like, has the same wacky, quirky, one of the best art styles in gaming, in my opinion. It's very unique. And each game is different, but it still has that like deck building feel to it overall. And they're really good in their own unique way. And he's been kind of posting on Twitter. Slothworks is his development team or brand now. And he's been posting gameplay of this kind of deck building, but it's a real-time strategy, not real-time strategy, but like a turn-based strategy game, kind of like Fire Emblem in a way. And it's like his unique spin of like a deck builder mixed with that genre. And he always has this like unique flavor to his games where he makes it different, but it's familiar right off the bat. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And he actually just announced it like not even like a week or two ago, I think. But it's called Bramble Royale or something like that. And he just barely announced it. Like I just saw as we've been sitting here. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. So check out Slothworks. Every game is incredible. Very good dev. And he always is posting consistent stuff about his games. So
to echo on that, like definitely check out Mint City's content on the Meteorfall series, especially Chromit's Tale. And to also echo the art style, if you like games like Grindstone, I think you're really going to enjoy the art style of those games. Would you agree? Yeah.
That is probably the best way I would describe it. It's very similar to, I think that actually came out after Meteorfall too. Yeah. So maybe it was kind of biting the style of that one, who knows, but it's a great art style nonetheless, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, those are great choices. And for me, I have a couple. It was really hard for me to choose between one. So I'm glad I mentioned game or games so I don't break any rules. So the first one is my like breakout hit of the most recent Steam Next Fest, and that is Gun Jam. I am obsessed with Gun Jam. So let me sort of back up a little bit and mention I'm not that great at FPS games. I don't know if you've noticed, I've never reviewed one on the channel. Why? A little bit shy. Gotta be honest with you. I really don't want to like talk about like, oh, the shooting mechanics are really great and the movement is awesome, and then I'm just flailing around like, you know, I don't want to show that. I don't want to show that gameplay. You know, it took me a long time to get decent in Apex Legends, and it was rough. It was rough for a while, and I think if I played it again, it would still be rough. But I'm surprisingly decent at Gun Jam, and I think it's just because like I'm good at rhythm games, and Gun Jam has basically sort of turned this FPS game into a full rhythm game. It feels like Guitar Hero and DDR mixed with like Doom. It's so good. And I love that like we've had a couple of these rhythm FPSs coming out recently. We had BPM and we had Metal Hellsinger. But the thing that this game does differently is the music is so diverse. So there's like EDM, there's metal, there's trap, there's like so many different kind of genres represented. And once that game clicks, you are in a flow state that is like no other game that I've experienced. Like you are just flying through these levels and the controls are incredibly simple. You shoot with left click and you dash with right click, and then you move with WASD for keyboard. That's it. There's no like supers or abilities or like a hotkey bar, anything like that. You just are worrying about dashing and shooting to the beat. So the way that it goes is you'll have these sort of colored shapes that will rise up on the screen very slowly. And once they reach your reticle, that's when you should shoot or dash. And so it then becomes your reticle. So everything is like lined up to where it's not distracting. And it works out so well. I played that demo going in. I thought I would like it, but I was like, I don't know. I'm not that great at FPSs. I played that, S-ranked the levels and was like, what's happening? What is happening with this game that I'm like actually kind of okay at it? And I think part of it is you need to understand with Gun Jam, it's not about killing everything, which I was very surprised on. Like, it's just do something to the beat and look cool. Like, that's it. So if you just want to, like, dash to the beat through a stage and not shoot anything, like, you can do that. Or if you want to, like, do a boss level and, like, dash slide under their legs and, like, pop shoot them and, like, go around and, like, kill other enemies and stuff, you can, like, make really sort of, like, cool paths to getting through these levels, and it's like way more approachable and accessible than I thought it would be, and I'm pleasantly surprised that it is. It's published by Raw Fury. It's been in development for a really long time, and it used to have a different art style. I love the new art style. It has like almost a Borderlands-esque kind of inspiration. Not
like
quite as
shaded graphics kind of stuff.
Not quite as thick with the borders. So like it's not quite Gunfire Reborn, which Mint I know you're familiar with. But it sort of has that inspiration, and I really, really enjoy the way it looks. It's colorful, it's vibrant, and it also has full controller support, and it has adjustable aim assist. So if you literally wanted to play this without aiming, you could. So I'm really happy that that's there. I surprisingly didn't need to crank up the aim assist all the way. Like once I got the sensitivity dialed in, I felt right at home. And that's not something I say about FPS games a lot. It's normally me sort of going through menus on menus and going, maybe I'll become okay at this eventually. But Gunjam just clicked for me in a way that FPS games largely have not. Even though I love FPS games, but I'm really bad at them. So that's my sort of elevator pitch for Gunjam. And the other one is a game that I've had on my wish list since before the channel even started, which is Clive N Wrench. I will continue to talk about Clive N Wrench until it comes out. It gets delayed all the time, and I don't even care because I will wait eons until this game comes out because it just looks like the ultimate 3D platformer. It looks incredible. It's a dual mascot platformer, which I love. Obviously, being a fan of Banjo-Kazooie and Yooka-Laylee after that. I love the inspirations that they're taking. The traversal and movement options are incredible, and the game continues to get bigger and bigger. And I mean, you know from my videos that I'm a 3D platformer fan. Don't be surprised if there's a lot of 3D platformers in my Games of the Year discussion, because I'm primarily an N64 kid. My first system was the NES because I'm old, but I actually skipped the 16-bit generation and went straight to N64. And so most of my gaming is just playing 3D platformers. So Clive N Wrench looks like it could be that indie 3D platformer darling that maybe some people have been looking for since like A Hat in Time. So I'm really, really excited to finally dive in. And if you are listening, I believe it's Numbskull is publishing that one. So if Numbskull or Raw Fury is listening, let me review those games, please. Please let me review them. So that's my pitch to them. Hopefully they'll let me, but I'll play them either way. So yeah, really looking forward to those. And I don't know if this is next year, but I'll briefly mention, because again, we have a Cozy Games YouTuber on here. I gotta talk about Cozy Games. Lightyear Frontier looks incredible. I don't know who's publishing that one, but it's kind of a farm sim meets No Man's Sky with mechs. And so maybe that's all I have to say about it. I feel like you either know that you're going to like it or not from me saying Stardew meets No Man's Sky meets mechs. So
I just Googled it right now, and that is literally the best description that you could have come up with. So. Yeah. It looks cool. It's
really, really cool. I would like to interview those devs one day, but looking forward to those and a bunch of other ones. And we went that entire time without mentioning Silksong, which I think is incredible.
Yeah. Could you see my restraint? I was like,
yeah. I thought it was going to see, the reason I didn't choose it was I thought it was going to be mentioned. So I was like, I don't want to steal anyone's. So I didn't mention Silksong, but obviously before the Hollow Knight fans come in here and get angry, I am absolutely looking forward to Silksong. It looks great. So we'll see when it comes out, because it's supposed to come out soon based on those rumors. We'll see. But I can't even fathom the amount of ground that we have covered in those answers and just in this podcast in general. Before we get out of here, I just want to mention again, for anybody that's watching or listening on a second screen, I'm not judging you. However you want to consume this is fine with me. Make sure to leave a like and comment what you thought about the show. You know, it's episode 1. It's a roller coaster, and we're going to continue on. I have a number of episodes being planned. I am definitely going to have both of these guests on again, if I haven't scared them away, like, you know. So there's going to be a number of episodes coming up soon. This is a really cool evolution of the channel, something I've been planning on for a long time, and, you know, being too nervous or scared or not sure how to make this go. Like, I'm glad we're finally getting it rolling. So let me know your thoughts. Be nice, hopefully, in the comments below. You know, constructive criticism is okay, but, you know, try to be nice. And after that, I have to take some time before we get out of here to just gush about both of these guests, because I have been making elevator pitches on games you should look forward to, But let me tell you, you need to follow both of these people, okay? If you do nothing else, even if you don't subscribe to this channel, subscribe to theirs. So let me start off with Mint City. Like I mentioned before, this person believed in me before I did. He started watching the channel extremely early on when I was like, if I got like 70 views on a video, I was like, yo, this is doing numbers, right? Like this was way back, like when I first started. And I remember him coming into my comments and being like, keep going, you're going to blow up. And I was like, excuse me? And I like checked his channel and he was doing really well. And I was like, this is weird. People are watching and believing me at all. Like that's incredible. And ever since then, we've been chatting indie games, talking about indie games, talking about potentially playing indie games together. Core Keeper, shout out.
It's going to happen.
If we don't play Core Keeper, we need to play Dauntless, because I know that Denise talked about Dauntless in her Fae Farm video.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't played it, but I wanted to try it. So if you guys play it, I'm
literally down.
I'm in. No I'm in. There we go. We just made a squad.
I've played it before. It's actually pretty good. So.
Awesome. We just made it. See, we're making connections, making a Dauntless squad. There we go. And Denise, if you're down for Core Keeper, we can take more people there, because I think it's up to 8-player lobbies. And
definitely a chill game.
Ooh,
well, mostly chill.
Mostly. It's what you want to do.
Right. Yeah. Because I don't know if you're familiar with Core Keeper, but it's what if Stardew Valley and Valheim had a baby? Which sounds weird, but it actually works.
I love that. Oh my God, yeah. I love that.
Like if you've played Terraria, it feels like Terraria and Stardew Valley mixed together.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
For me.
Yeah. And
I see it now. Yeah, that looks really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
We both have it, so we're down to play. It's online co-op up to 8 players, I believe. So we can get a squad going there too. But yeah, with Mint City, like if you're on TikTok, follow him, because like don't follow me on TikTok. I haven't made a video there in months. All right, I'm terrible. Okay, follow Mint City, because his tagline is "Hi, I'm Mint City, and I find for you mobile games that don't suck." And honestly, that is like the perfect tagline for him, because he really does. And it's interesting now, whenever I see mobile game releases on Twitter, I tag him and I'm like, please review this. Let me know if it's good.
Jacob does my job for me now.
And then he does it. So I can make informed purchasing decisions based on Mint's feedback, which is really great. And I watch every single one of his videos. I've been on his podcast. It's just such a good vibe over there. And, from mobile games and beyond mobile games, because he also has a Let's Play channel where he is clicking heads in Apex Legends. So you can go check him out over there too. So
my guilty pleasure.
That's right. And he's been kind of slowly convincing me to come back, but like it's just one of those, like, I don't know if I'm ready for that commitment. You know what I mean? Like
understandable.
I'm not anti-commitment. I'm anti-Apex Legends commitment. Because I have to devote a large portion of my life to be semi-decent at it. So we'll see. Let me know. You know what? Let me know in the comments below if I should go back to Apex Legends. If I get enough people that will tell me, yes, you should play it, I'll do it. I'll let the people decide. There you go. And I get engagement. YouTube.
That's how you do it.
That's right. See, we're content creators. We know we have to feed the almighty algorithm. But enough about Mint City. All right, I've done enough praising. Now we got to get to Denise. Honestly, one of the reasons I've had both of you on is because I wanted to kind of have a linear progression into somebody who believed in me and said my channel was going to blow up, and then have somebody who I can say that their channel is going to blow up. And honestly, that's yours. Like, for real. Ever since watching your videos, I was like, this is like the most underrated YouTube channel I've seen in quite some time. Because it's like, you talk about the games that are cozy that we should know about, the games that we should look forward to, but you're deep diving research. Like, you're coming out in videos going, well, I went through all these Discords and this and that. And I'm like, whoa, like, that's a lot of work.
Diego.
That's right. Like,
that's my hobby.
Yeah, you're like a cozy games detective. It's amazing. And like, seeing your Fae Farm video, seeing a bunch of other videos that you've been talking about, all these different kinds of games, I was like, these are the games I really, really enjoy. Because it's like, I have this weird sort of push and pull with gaming. Is like, I love roguelikes that will destroy me. And then I have to like cool down with a cozy game. Like, I love doing that. Like, I love playing a roguelike, and then I'm like, let's play Spirit in the Mouse for a little bit.
Let's lick our wounds.
That's right. That's right. So your channel is like perfect for that. And your presentation, being in front of the camera, I'm super jealous of. Like, as you can tell, audience, I'm not used to this. I'll get more comfortable as time goes on, but like,
you're doing great, Jacob.
Thank you.
Yes, you undersell yourself. Yes.
And also S tier setup behind you. I keep looking at like everything going on. I'm like, this is like incredible.
A little Kirby detail in the corner. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a little dark right now.
That's all right. But you have the presentation, you have the vibe, you have the just sheer amount of effort. Like, it's a thing for us content creators where I think some people can feel like we just press the make video button and then video comes out, and I'm still looking for it. I'm still looking for that button because
and let me know if you find it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll let everybody know. But like, you can tell from your videos like how much work you're putting into it. And so honestly, like, keep it going, because the world is going to know about your channel and the games that you're talking about. And I'm also looking forward to your thoughts on, Day of the Devs coming up here and other videos you got working on. So with that, like, Denise, where can people find you, follow you, subscribe to you, all that good stuff?
You can find me at SeeingStarsGaming on YouTube. I'm mainly active on YouTube. I'm also active on Twitter at SeeingStarGamer, but Twitter is a little bit
little chaotic right now. Yeah.
You can mainly find me on YouTube if you can't find me anywhere else.
Sounds good. And Mint, why don't you give us your channel URLs and all that good stuff for people to follow you?
Oh, for sure. I'm the most active. If you're trying to get a hold of me over messages or DMs, it's definitely Twitter. Who knows if Twitter's still there by then, but it's Real
Right.
Mint City. All of my socials outside of the platforms I create content for are Real Mint City. My TikTok is also Real Mint City. I post on there like 2 to 3 times a week now. It's a lot less, but YouTube's always been my main focus. And YouTube is just Mint City, no spaces, capital M, capital C. Love to see you there. And change your mind about mobile games. If you think that there's no good games on mobile, I will try to prove you wrong. And hopefully you'll have a new game to play even when you're on the go.
Not only will you try, you will. You will prove all of them wrong.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Hey, you can find me here. You're already here. Just sub, please. Anything, I'll take
your
it.
Twitter. Your Twitter is so useful, please.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, well, Twitter's an interesting story. So you can follow me on Twitter at your friend Jacob, but you have to replace the O with a 0 because someone who's been inactive for several years still has the at, and I will never get it. Tear streams down my face. But you can also probably just look up like your friend Jacob, one word, and one of my tweets will probably pop up and follow me there because I'll be retweeting Mint and Denise all the time. So that would be another place that you can find their content. And but really the main platform for me, as always, is YouTube. And for any legends that made it this far, I have a Discord. I will post the link in the description and in a pinned comment because I give away free indie games there. So there's your cool little secret. You want free indie games? Join the Discord. And then I'm also going to open it up to where you can ask questions for me and guests on future podcast episodes. So join the Discord because it might be the only place to find me after Twitter is gone. So with that cheerful last note, thank you all for joining us. Thank you again to Denise and Mint. Please follow them. Even if you can only subscribe to 2 channels, subscribe to those 2. And if you feel generous enough, maybe the 3rd for me. I'm your friend Jacob. This is the Indie Friends Podcast, and we're out.
Bye.
Bye.